Two-wheelers and three-wheelers combined consume more than 70% of fuel consumption in India, right? So the impact that you make when you cater to this segment is much, much higher than you anticipate. Tata published a report last year and they also said that more than 93% of their users are just charging at home or office spaces where the vehicles are parked for the majority of the time. We have more than 30,000 charging points in 1,300 plus cities, right? We dispense more than 100 megawatts of energy per month, which is also very significant.
Hi, Mohit. Welcome here. Great to have you on the Prime Ventures podcast. Welcome, Mohit.
Thank you, Sanjay. Always excited to be here. It's a great time when, any conversation with you is fun. So I'm excited to, delve into what demystifying the EV ecosystem, what we are doing and, look forward to a great conversation.
Wonderful. So yeah, I think the whole space of EV has been changing so fast. And, one nice thing in India is that EVs have this, green license plate. So I would say over the last 24 months, we're all seeing these more and more frequently. It would be helpful perhaps if you could talk to us at a macro level, how does the industry shape up? What are the different types of vehicles out there that, we are starting to see in India in particular? And, both on the vehicle side as well as charging, we hear all these terms, L1 charger, L2 charger, things like that. So it'd be helpful for the audience if you could sort of put some of those things in context and perspective.
All right, sure. Let's jump right in. I think I would like to, make it very simple, make the audience understand the key two components of the EV ecosystem. First is the electric vehicles themselves, for sure. And then we have the charging network. We need to have a charging network to support the electric vehicles. So we operate in both the spaces. I think it's a very exciting time to be. The EV ecosystem has grown so much. And like we told you like 2 years ago, that EV adoption is being led by micromobility in particular. The two-wheelers and three-wheelers are really leading the charge. We can see, two-wheelers hitting close to 15% adoption, and on three-wheelers is now inching closer towards to 50%, which is unprecedented numbers. We are again on four-wheelers as well. We are seeing traction a lot more on the commercial side, but we are also seeing traction on the passenger side as well. End consumer side where Tata and others, the big OEMs are launching very price competitive offerings and, they do make the consumer think twice that should I be buying an EV or should I be going for a regular ICE vehicle? Because that was not the case 2 years ago. Now EVs are much more price competitive and we are, of course, we are in the business of building India's largest charging network. So there's a charging network to support that. So the confidence in the end consumer is increasing for sure. And it's great that so many OEMs, not just the legacy OEMs, but even, so many startups have now started to build EVs and competition is always great for the consumer. So yeah, that's on the electric vehicle side. Yeah.
Got it. So if we think about, if we read anything about EVs around the world, you read the name Tesla, right? And they're obviously not yet in India and we don't know when they will come, if they will come. Who are some of the, maybe we can start with four-wheelers and then get down to three and two-wheelers. Who are some of the most dominant players today and who do you think will be forces to reckon with in the, say, next 3 years in India?
In four-wheelers, it's pretty clear. Tata is leading the charge. They have a great offering. They started with the Nexon, car that was already familiar to the consumers. They did a great job of not reinventing the wheel and just making what was very popular with the consumers electric. And Tata today is doing extremely well. We also see competition cropping up from Hyundai, from Mahindra, and MG is also coming in. We also saw Citroen coming in recently. So
and BYD is another.
Yeah, BYD is another big giant that is also trying to get into India. But I think the way Tata is positioned, I think Maruti is also now becoming very serious about EVs. So all of these. It's more a question of when do the OEMs, internally feel that now is a good time to jump into this EV ecosystem. It's not that they don't have the capability or manufacturing capability or the tech. It's more a question of does it make, business sense or financial sense to jump into this realm. So Tata, Maruti, MG, Hyundai are going to be the key players, if you ask me. Mahindra as well.
And I guess with the pollution problems, there's no avoiding that this trend is happening. It's just a matter of time. It's not a question of whether it's going to happen. Let's talk a little bit about two-wheelers, right? Because we have seen Ather and Ola as two of the new brands that have come up. And in some ways, the incumbents were sort of behind the eight ball, so to speak. And, I guess Hero has come out with Vida, and we're starting to see more and more Bajaj Chetak EV and things like that. As we saw in the US with the cars, Tesla came out with sort of you're really driving a computer is what it feels like. The workhorse in India is really the two-wheeler. So how do we see, are we going to see like smart two-wheelers, app-based two-wheelers? Is there an opportunity for any of that? And how do you see that evolve?
Sure, that's a great question, Sanjay. I think when you think about electric vehicles, right, the question of mileage is out of the window. So what do you excite a user about, right? It's not the engine sound. It's not that, it's the amount of money that you can save. Because it's electric, they want it to behave like a gadget. And the precedent is already set by these startups, be it Ola, Ather. And you can see even the legacy OEMs trying to offer a similar digital offering. Of course, they do not have the same DNA as these startups, but they are also trying very hard. And because there is not much to, not much to differentiate one electric vehicle from the other, a lot of, the juice really lies in the software and the personalization of the vehicle and what all fancy features do you get. Like even if you look in Tesla, right, people are not really excited. Tesla in the early days used to have problems of, fitment, panel fitment, quality issues and whatnot, but all that got washed over because people were so excited by the technology that they offered. The maps inbuilt, it behaves like a gadget. You can control it with your phone. Of course, there is, the self-drive, driving assist features that they have. So increasingly, because the USP that would be created on electric vehicles is more going to be software and personalization based. It would be driven more by that. So I think software is going to play even more crucial role going ahead in the future.
So give us some examples of some smart features that we are likely to see in two-wheelers that some of which might already be there in a handful of models, but which will become kind of ubiquitous, whether it's maps integration or will people be doing WhatsApp on the dashboard of their two-wheeler? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, so I think unlike cars, when you're riding a two-wheeler, you cannot interface too much with the vehicle because both of your hands have to be on the handlebar, right? But that doesn't mean there is no scope for any smartness. Of course, maps is a very big use case. Even a basic direction advice, not a full-blown map needs to be there. That's even helpful. Getting indications like phone calls, a little bit of music control. If the vehicle has speaker, you want to change the mood when you're going for a nice ride on a nice road, on a curvy road. And then of course there'll be a lot more safety features as well, and vehicle efficiency features. So I'm not sure if electric vehicles users know that, but not the general population, is that whenever you brake in an electric vehicle, first braking is applied electronically. It's called regeneration. Right? So they harness that energy and recharge the battery whenever you press the brake. So a lot of braking comes from the regen, and then only any physical braking happens. So those are safety features. Not only that, it improves the lifespan of the brakes, but also provides a much smoother braking experience. And the throttle response is very nice. It's all drive-by-wire. It's a very advanced technology that is mostly used in cars, but pretty much every electric two-wheeler runs by drive-by-wire. So the throttle response is very nice. Then of course there'll be more features like, if your battery is a little bit low, it should allow you to, squeeze a little bit more juice out of that. So all these smart, contextually aware features will find, their place in the evolving realm, I would say.
Got it. Now, before I get to the charging side of it, you guys also make an operating system for smart EVs, right? Tell us about that, and why is that in the case of electric vehicles, where it has not been sort of historically the case in ICE engines?
For sure, because like I said, it boils down to the same thing, right? An electric vehicle is a computer on wheels, and when anything is a computer, be it your mobile phone or your laptop, all the real value is created by software, right? And the thing is, it's very expensive to make software. Building a vehicle in itself is a big enough of a challenge, but on top of that, you combine R&D efforts for developing great software and all those things. It becomes extremely expensive for any OEM to directly jump into that. And of course, there is another issue that any OEM, unlike the startups which are completely vertically integrated, it's difficult for any OEM to have a software-driven mindset, right? Because their main focus is on the manufacturing and the operations, and less on how much value can be provided by software. So think of people, think of companies like Tesla's, Ola's, and Ather who are trying to be the Apples, taking the Apple approach. But if you think of the mobile, if you see the mobile world today, like 80 to 90% of handsets run on Android. So we are the Android for electric vehicles. If you want to build an electric vehicle, you can quickly use our software to make it smart. All the fancy features that you get on these advanced vehicles, which are a little bit more premium, you can get that right off the bat if you work with us. So that's what it does. Our OS basically turns your vehicle into a gadget.
Got it. So from the manufacturer of an electric vehicle, they worry about the physical unit itself, the drivetrain, and the look and feel, the promotion, the marketing, etc. But the consumer knows that they're getting a sort of high quality application software based environment where there might be more apps downloaded over time. I remember when we first met, you showed me, hey, if we move into a rental economy and people start renting out their two-wheelers, and you have a two-wheeler that's parked here while you're in the office, you could rent it out for 4 hours, but you can say that, if Jerome is borrowing my vehicle, he cannot drive more than 30 kilometers per hour. But when I'm riding it, I can go at 50 kilometers per hour. So things like that will suddenly become software controllable. And this is where apps will potentially play a role.
Yes, absolutely. Because as an end user, you are only riding your vehicle less than 5 to 10% of the time, right? So what is the vehicle doing then? And maybe as a user, you do love your bike for the first 1 or 2 years, and when it becomes old, you would like that vehicle to generate a lot more revenue for that, right? The love fades with time. So that gives you, if the vehicle is already connected to the internet, it opens up all these possible opportunities that they can be shared on charging. Like, that our charging network is a peer-to-peer charging network. Why can't we have peer-to-peer vehicle sharing if everything is smart and connected?
Got it. And so from a manufacturer perspective, as long as they use the Bolt OS, then the application development can be done by third parties. It doesn't have to be done by the manufacturer themselves, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So think of it in this way, like Swiggy today makes a rider app on mobile. Imagine that app and all the directions being showed on the speedometer, right? So that would make the life of the rider very, very easy.
Correct. And that could be on a borrowed mobile two-wheeler. It doesn't have to be on the rider's own two-wheeler.
You have a shared bike, you put it on the Swiggy network, you put it on the Bounce network, you put it on, Ola network, whatever network you want to put.
And given the payments are so seamless and stuff, nowadays all revenue share, everything can be done. And that's brilliant. So let's talk a little, you alluded a little about charging. One of the big things that the company does is the charging network itself. So, I keep reading, and as much as I have the privilege of talking to you, as I try to, these terminology of L1, L2, fast charging, etc., it's always a mystery, and I need to keep sort of re-clarifying to myself. So maybe for our listeners, you can talk a little bit about, easy ways to remember these and understand these in the first place.
Sure. Let me make it very simple. Think of chargers in 3 categories: level 1, level 2, level 3. We just call them L1, L2, L3 for brevity, right? And level 1 is any basic charging point, like just a socket that you have in your home. You can plug the portable charger that comes with the vehicle. You can plug that in. However, it's not very safe to use the 15 amp socket because it might melt over extended usage. There is no current protection, surge protection. Even it's also prone to power theft, right? If you just use a standard 15 amp socket in your, let's say, a shared parking, someone else can come and plug in, and there is the possibility of theft protection. So level 1 is regular charging, the 15 amp socket charging, and AC charging, alternate current charging. So that's level 1. On level 2 and level 3, when we talk about, it's primarily on the 3-wheelers, basically. So level 2 is AC charging for 4-wheelers. So level 2 is AC charging for 4-wheelers, and level 3 is DC charging for 4-wheelers. So for example, when you're parking your let's say 4-wheeler in your society and you're not on a road trip, you do not need extremely fast charging. You don't want your vehicle to be filled up in an hour or so, right? That's where the level 2 chargers basically bridge the gap. They range from 7 kilowatt to 22 kilowatt. So they require more power supply than your home has, right? So a level 1 charging point can be put with the existing power supply that you have at your home. If you have every home has enough spare load to put a level 1 charging point, but the moment you move to level 2 or level 3, the electricity infrastructure needs to be upgraded a little bit. So level 2 is intermittent, middle charging, basically. AC charging, and level 3 is the fast charging. They look exactly like the petrol bunks. They range from 30 kilowatts to now we have till 240 kilowatts as well, and they do DC charging. So directly they pump power directly into the electric vehicle, and because it's DC, you can charge really, really fast. When it's AC, the AC first has to be converted to DC, and then only you can charge a vehicle. It's not possible to charge any battery using AC. There has to be a rectifier. So on level 1 also, when you use a level 1 charging point, the portable charger that gets shipped with your vehicle is the rectifier that converts the current from AC to DC to charge your vehicle.
Got it. So broadly you're saying, look, if you're buying a two-wheeler, L1 is what you need. And you would buy one, what does this thing cost if a two-wheeler scooter costs, say, 1.25 lakhs, let's say, or, about like $1,500. In comparison, how much does an L1 charger from Bolt cost approximately?
Oh yeah, for sure. Our charging points are extremely affordable because that's our main focus. We wanted to make level 1 charging as the most affordable charging, because not only two-wheelers, even four-wheelers use level 1 charging. We've been driving a Nexon electric, right, for 2 years. We charge it using Bolt, our level 1 charging point that's installed in our parking, right? And it's extremely affordable. It retails at just 4,500 rupees. So can just be bundled as an accessory with your vehicle, just like a seat cover or a leg guard is bundled as an accessory. It's one of the best and the safest accessory to bundle, because not only it gives you a monitored and monetized experience when you want to charge, but it also prevents the charger that is being shipped with the vehicle, right? There is no damage that happens to that charger. So we start at just 4,500 rupees.
Wonderful. Now, one of the things you all have done is, while I might buy a scooter and I say from an Ola or an Ather or something and buy a charger from Bolt and keep the vehicle safe and all of the other benefits you talked about from a power dispensation perspective. We also had set it up where, it's a networked charger device. And so, I could also potentially make some money off of it when I'm not using the charger, right? And particularly for shopkeepers and stuff like that. And one of the things you had told me was, well, with gas stations, it's still kind of hubs that you keep going to. But for two-wheeler charging, or even for level 1 charging, which could also be for four-wheelers, you're not going to a hub, the charger is coming to you.
Yes.
Right? And it could be a shop that I'm parked at for whatever. So how does this network work in terms of, who can buy it, who can get on the network, who makes money out of it, who pays? How does that entire process work?
Sure. So the beauty of our network is, of course, very affordable charging offerings on which, they help us basically, expand the network from a hardware standpoint. But the model is that it's a peer-to-peer charging network. So it's built on the same, the example that we had in our minds when we were thinking about this were the PCO boxes that we had in India, where you could just put a coin, go to a mom and pop store, make a call. And it's just, static hardware, right? It doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance, and it's just generating passive income for them, right? So we took a look at that and saw that the entire maintenance and the service of the charging network in such a scenario is being done by the host themselves. So it's like a peer-to-peer charging network, Airbnb for charging, right? So you as a host purchase the hardware from us, Bolt.Earth. You set it up. Any general electrician can set it up. It takes less than 30 minutes to set up. It's one app for the host and the users both. You set it up, then it's up to you when you want to make it public, when you want to make it private, and you can set your own rates as well. And as a user, when I open the app, I see all the charging points being set up. I can see the ratings and reviews given by other users. And there is a whole lot of transparency built into the network that you can call the host before you go. You can see when the charging point was used last. So there is a lot of data that we provide in our network to increase the transparency and truth. And why we were very bullish on this very dense network is because there is a fundamental inversion that is happening with electricity compared to any other source of fuel, if you think about it, right? Unlike other sources of fuel, for electricity, the distribution is already built up. You only need to upgrade it, right? If you think about CNG, you think about other green hydrogen, there are a lot of things that we think about. But then again, the distribution of the fuel is also something that needs to be solved for, right? Petrol has that going for it. But if you look at CNG, it has not scaled that much because building that entire distribution pipeline is very difficult. But electricity is everywhere, it's all around you, right? The odds of finding a 15 amp sockets are much higher than even finding a liter of fuel, even when it's all sold in a bottle, right? So that's the fundamental inversion. Instead of people going to special places to charge, they will just park their vehicles and they will just assume that there would be a charging point there because the wires have already reached there. Every parking can be enabled with just a very price competitive offering that we are offering, and that's when the inversion would happen. And since India is such a dense country, right, it doesn't make sense for us to invest so much into fast charging just like America has invested, which is a very spread out country. India is so dense that if a car has a range of 300 kilometers, which pretty much all electric vehicles offer today, I think you are done with your trip. Like no one is riding that much, right? It's a very, very dense country. And in fact, in India, I told that stat to you as well, Sanjay, that in India, the longest bus stop, like the continuous distance for any bus that runs is just 170 kilometers, right? So we thought about that and we thought that I don't see myself driving that much. I don't see anyone driving that much. And how often are you doing these road trips, right? Because you are only driving the vehicle 5 to 10% of the times. What you want is remaining 90% of the times, even when you have a regular or a slow charging experience, that is enough. I plug in my Nexon every night into a Bolt charging point and wake up effectively with a full tank of gas, right? Even with the regular charging point. So it's the density which is extremely important. If this podcast is for 2 hours, I would have gotten more than 30% of range even for a car if I had plugged it in a level 1 charging point, right? So it's the density that matters the most. Of course, there is need for fast charging to be set up on highways. I'm not debating that. But Tata published a report last year, and they also said that more than 93% of their users are just charging at home or office spaces where the vehicles are parked for the majority of the time.
That's actually a really nuanced point. I mean, as much as we have, enjoyed working together over the past 3 years, and you've told me this, today it really hit home. And I was thinking about how the US is different from India, right? Because my friends plan long distance trips. I had recently gone to Scotland. I wanted to rent a Tesla Model Y. And then they said, well, you'll go to these areas and there is just no charging infrastructure out there. And, you do travel large distances in those countries. But in India, we don't tend to do that and don't have too many opportunities to do that, right? At least for 80-20 rule. So coming back to your network now, or our network at Bolt, how many charging points are there, and how many of those are publicly available for somebody who buys a new EV to use, and how might one find them?
So for sure, I think our charging network is a universal charging network, right? We have more than 30,000 charging points in 1,300 plus cities, right? We dispense more than 100 megawatts of energy per month, which is also very significant, right? And 80% of the network is just built up of the level 1 charging points. The remaining 20% is split between level 2 and level 3, which we have just started to offer. It's just only been 1 year since we have gotten into the level 2, level 3 game. And for you to discover, you just need to download our Bolt.Earth charging app and you're good to go. Just sign up with your phone number and the flow is very simple. It's built on top of, again, technology pioneered by India, which is UPI. It's just scan, pay, charge. You discover these charging points on an app. There are all the relevant information, the rate, the pricing, the ratings, reviews, all that is anyway present. When you navigate to the charging point, you just need to scan the QR code, pay for the duration or the energy you want to charge for, and then just start charging. It's very simple. It's 3 steps.
Brilliant. And one last question on charging. You talked about level 2 and level 3, and you told me, typically they're put in malls, they're put in residential RWA, and then they're put in, corporates, right? What are you seeing as a trend here in the adoption of, this infrastructure? I know you had said in some areas there are probably even regulatory requirements that some percentage of car parking needs to be electric. Yeah,
I think India as a country is very bullish on our green ambitions, right? Our policies is very bullish, right? And in many states, there is a mandate that 15 to 20% of the parking needs to have electricity, needs to be enabled with the EV charging infrastructure. Otherwise, you don't get the occupancy certificate, right? So it has now gone from nice to have to a must have because of policies in some state. But regardless of the policies also, we see multiple developers, like we work with all the big developers, be it Shobha, Purvankara, Brigade, right? What is happening is the new build, not just the existing buildings, we are seeing more and more demand for EV charging, but the new buildings that they're constructing, they are putting a charging point in every parking. Our humble level 1 charging point, because that's just a common amenity for the residents. So they can also pitch their societies as being future ready, EV ready, right? And of course, since it's connected to a common meter, they can of course generate some passive income out of it. So we are seeing incredible progress there. We work with all the big builders. On corporates also, we work with pretty much everyone: Bank of America, American Express, whoever it is, Manyata Tech Park in Bangalore. So we are closing corporates and residential places left, right, and center. And more and more people are also becoming clear that this is a necessary investment that they need to do, just like they do an investment when they're setting up a swimming pool or an elevator or a lift. It's just one of those expenses. So earlier when we used to go, this is like 1-2 years ago, right? The industry is moving at such pace that 1 year seems so long ago. But in the early days, it was very difficult for us to convince the real estate developers or anyone to hey, buy these charging points, because first of all, they didn't see the EV adoption growing at that pace. And a lot of other companies or CPOs for that matter were giving them at their own cost, right? They were giving it on lease. But quickly they figured out that's not a good situation to be in, because then the price per unit of electricity is too high. And if you reduce the price per unit, it's not a viable business model for them. So now they have understood that yes, we do need to buy this hardware from companies like Bolt.Earth, and then they have all the freedom to set their rates, right? Because the parking can vary, the parking conditions can vary from one parking spot to the other, right? So if you want to park at a premium space, even inside a society, it does make sense to charge a little bit more. And if it's a resident of the society, you can give slight discounting to that resident. So
as long as it's all controlled through software, you have all that flexibility.
It's all software driven. Yeah.
Wonderful. So last question, next 24 months, what do you see as the most exciting things? What are your predictions for this industry and ecosystem? And what are some of the challenges or concerns that still need to be overcome in your mind?
For sure. I think there are a lot more positives than there are very little headwinds in this industry that we operate in, because it's just started to grow and it's going to keep growing till 2030. In fact, charging is supposed to grow at 65% CAGR till 2030. So it's an extremely lucrative business to be in. Good things that are going to happen in the next 24 months. You'll see more of these level 1 charging points being just bundled as an accessory with all these vehicles being sold. We are doing that with all the major 2-wheeler and 3-wheeler OEMs today, right? We'll keep you posted on the PR. You keep seeing that on our channel as well, right? So that's one thing that's going to happen. Another interesting thing that's going to happen is a lot more startups will start hitting the ground, and we'll have more offerings, right? Of course, the legacy players have started to wake up, but that doesn't mean there wouldn't be no startups that won't be making any electric vehicle. We have just gotten started. So more and more people are going to be coming. And I think in particular on the 2-wheeler and 3-wheeler, on the 2-wheeler front, fast charging is something which is going to be very exciting, because unlike 4-wheelers, if you want to fast charge a 4-wheeler, you need a lot of electricity, right? But the level 1 charging point today has enough electricity to fast charge a 2-wheeler also today, right? So the electricity infrastructure doesn't need to be upgraded for fast charging to be unlocked for 2-wheelers. And here's an interesting fact, like 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers combined consume more than 70% of fuel consumption in India, right? So the impact that you make when you cater to this segment is much, much higher than you anticipate.
That's amazing. So really looks like exciting times. Coincidentally, this morning, I was going through my Twitter, or I guess X feed, and I saw a tweet by Kunal Shah, which sort of is interesting, and I'll just say it here. I think he said something like, glory comes to those who fight headwinds, but wealth comes to those who latch on to tailwinds. And I think in our case, given the journey that we've had with Bolt, and we'll talk some more with Jyoti also, you guys have been fighting these headwinds as the industry was being created, and perhaps have got your fair share of glory. And wish you all the best. I hope you also latch on to the tailwinds and build a large, successful company.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Sanjay. We look forward to the future. We are excited about the business, and of course, only upwards, onwards and upwards from here. So,
Brilliant.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.